When the credits rolled, I just sat there feeling very sad for Dedre and Syril. I think most of us initially saw these characters as naturally terrible people, and that would have been the cheap and easy way to tell the story. But the brilliance of Season 2 of Andor opened up the curtains and showed us that really, growing up, Dedre and Syril are just victims of multiple layers of psychological manipulation that led them to become the person that they are and ultimately meet their tragic fates. For Dedre, it was the Empire that took care of her. Taken in, raised in an Imperial facility, fed, clothed, educated, though surrounded by Imperial propaganda, it raised her to become a shining example of an Imperial loyalist. No emotion, no empathy, just tactical, cold, ruthless, with an absolute belief that the Galactic Empire was good. And this is an example of ideological indoctrination and cultural determinism, where children are systematically taught a rigid belief and their worldview is shaped by the culture they're raised in, with really no room for self-thought. And this is something you often find in political, religious, and cult-like environments. There are real-world examples of this. You have groups like the Westboro Baptist Church, where a lot of its members from early childhood are taught that homosexuality, other religions, and even Christians themselves are damned. And they internalize these ideas thinking that it is divine truth. North Korea is another example. Children there are raised to view the Kim dynasty as godlike. Anyone outside the country is just simply evil. Moral indoctrination is so strong there that defectors often report extreme guilt for doing so. So it makes you wonder, when you're in an environment with nothing to compare against, can we really say that Dedre was naturally evil? I want to imagine that what kind of person Dedre could have been had she been raised in a different environment, because you can't say she didn't see the moral wrongness of her and the Empire's actions on Gorman. We saw how conflicted she was when confronted by Syril, and her hesitation when it was time for her to pull the trigger and ignite the massacre. Now, for Syril, he was a victim of a type of parenting called narcissistic and tiger parenting, as we often see in his relationship between him and his mother Edie. Throughout the story of Andor, we see how Edie ties her condition of love and approval of Syril to be based on his achievements, and often passive-aggressively states behavioral expectations and comparisons to lay guilt on Syril, which is in itself an act of control. We often see this behavior in parents that are high-achieving, status-obsessed, and view their child as a reflection or even a tool for their own self-image. And so this hypercritical, emotional, invalidating environment often leads children to develop resentment towards their parents, while also craving for validation from the same person. So the child develops a kind of moral framework that is focused on status, law and order, and seeking out rigid, militaristic, bureaucratic institutions to feel safe and valued. And in the Star Wars universe, what better representation of that than the Imperial Galactic Empire? Now, the man did grow to be socially awkward, you can admit that, but you can't classify him as evil. He definitely was the poster subject victim for the Empire to take advantage of his psychological vulnerabilities and the need for validation. You work for an institution, you get promoted, you lead a team, you feel like you're making a difference and you're being recognized by an institution that you believe in. It's a powerful feedback loop. And it fulfilled him. And when Andor said to Syril, who are you? You can feel that shattered sense of identity, to feel insignificant after being praised and thanked and having people look up to you. And for that to be the last thing you think of just before being killed, it's so heartbreaking. Because a lot of deaths that we see in Star Wars, they go out famous or infamous with a established reputation as legends, things he himself probably looked up to. But he didn't get that. He died as no one, as nothing. Dedre and Syril for years thought they were the good guys, from a certain point of view. For years they thought that what they were doing was for the good, an ideology so strong that it defined their identity, their allegiance, their choices, and ultimately their fates. And to have your truth, your world foundation taken away from you, realizing that you meant nothing, that you were on the wrong side all these years, you just think, who am I? For Dedre, you do so much for your sense of duty. You're loyal, you rise up ranks, you reach the top, you're ambitious, only to realize that you are the worst for all that's happened. You are a cause why you lose the person you care about, and to tragically and ironically be punished and imprisoned by the same institution that raised you and that you dedicate yourself to. When I was younger in the corporate world, I was just like that. I worked long hours, sacrificed time with others, provided results for the organization because I truly believed in it. And I rose up the ranks fast, got recognized, I got appreciated. I poured my heart and soul into chasing success for myself and the organization. And then when I experienced betrayal and disappointment, what happened to Dedre and Syril made me remember how shitty that was. So, I get it. I know these characters are fictitious, but this series, Andor, this is Star Wars reaching the level of art to give us such fleshed out, complex characters that you can hate and yet empathize and feel heartbroken for. And so I get it. For Dedre and Syril, I'm really sorry.